Getting clarity on your values is one of the most important things into living your best life. In this video, I'm going to get down and dirty and let you know how we're going to get clarity on your values so that you can start living your best life too. So let's get down and dirty on clarity on your values. Let me tell you something. We all have this vision of what our lives are supposed to be like. We have this vision, we grow up with it, we think we know what we want, we think we know how life is going to be, and then a curveball gets thrown. And then you add in all your peers are living their lives a certain way, and maybe it's not where your vision was or how it is, but you start thinking, oh my gosh, maybe that's how I should be living too. Maybe I should have the big house, these cars, my kids go to that school, vacationing where everyone else vacations. So there begins this time, and it happens differently for everyone, on when you're a little confused on really what you do value. And we got to bring it back. We got to dig in. We got to figure out what is it you value? Because you've been consumed with the Disneyland version of your life. Here's how my life's going to be. I'm going to have a white picket fence and house. Then you grow up and reality hits and it's not exactly like it. And then you see all of your friends living a certain way or family living a certain way. And you're like, well, maybe that's what I should be doing. And then there's you. Are you living the way you want? Are you clear on what you value and what's important to you? And this is where I want to give you some tips, some really important tips on how you can start getting some clarity on what you value. So take out a piece of paper and pen, and I want you just to think for a few minutes. Think about what is the most important thing to you and in your life right now. Write down 5 things. It's really that simple, 5 things. Write down those 5 things on what's most important to you. The next thing I'm going to ask you is, are you focusing your day-to-day activities around those 5 things? And some of you may say, well, yeah, of course, I put my kids down. They're important to me. I put down work. Work's important to me. But really, what is important to you and how are you doing it? Are you in the job that you want to have? Are you spending time with your kids the way you want to spend it? Are you doing for your kids the way you want to do it? Maybe you put down free time is important to you. Well, what are you doing? Do you have free time or don't have free time? So now we're going to dig a little deeper. What are the specific things, measurable things that you could be doing on those 5 things that you value? And some you may be doing, which is great. Kudos to you. But some you're probably not. Most people aren't. And some you might not have done any of it. You're like, oh my gosh, I put down my family, my work, my house, vacationing and free time is important to me, and I don't do any of it. All right, there is your answer. You got to get clarity on what's important to you. And guess what? There can be more than 5. I just gave you 5 to start with, but let's start with those 5. Let's start to dig down and let's rate them. Are you doing them? Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 5, and if you put your kids are most important to you, okay, well, tell me how you're spending time with your kids. How are you making it impactful on their lives? How are you going to leave a legacy for them? And I don't mean legacy by money. I mean time. Let me tell you a few examples. Spending time with my son was one of the things I valued most when I first started doing this exercise. And I have to tell you, I was working nonstop. I was in a situation where I had no choice but to work nonstop. And when I say nonstop, this little dude, my little dude, he was 18 months old and even younger, and I would schlep him along all the way to the office every weekend. I was working a couple different jobs to get to where I needed to be. Was I spending quality time with him? Absolutely not. It was nonstop work, and work kind of came first. And there wasn't a need for it at the time. I needed the funds. So as I started to really evaluate my life and make sure I'm living my best life, spending time with my son was important. So one thing I did, again, specific measurable goals, was to put my phone down at night. When I walk in that door, it's all about my son. From the time I walk in to the time he goes to bed. And then I'm free to work as much as I want, pick up my phone. And this has become, as I become more successful and work, I don't have to work as hard as I once was working. I realized like the phone is also a distraction from him with social media these days. I'm on social media nonstop, or I'm checking emails, or I'm just on. So the phone is off. It goes on my counter. It also starts to put in a good, as he's gotten older, when I went through some of my hardest times, he was a baby and a toddler, so he doesn't know it. But now that he's, 10, 11, 12, getting into those ages, a phone is important to him. I'm modeling good behavior. So that was one of mine. Spend more time with my son. I did it. First step was as simple as putting my phone down so that it was quality of time and not necessarily quantity. It doesn't have to be quantity, it's quality. I want to make sure when he thinks about me when he's older that he doesn't think about me like, oh, my mom her head was always down in the phone, or she was always working. I don't want that. I want him to know that I had a good work ethic, but I want spending time with him is so important to me. So there's one example. Now, you think of a few examples for yourself and write them down. This is a great exercise to get real with yourself. And again, you may have grown up thinking you're gonna have this white picket fence life. Reality hits, life happens, things happen, and it's not. And now you see your peers maybe living a life that you think you want. Maybe that's not important. If you don't put big house on your list as something that you value, then it's not something. Maybe you put a home. I want a home that feels comfortable and warm and cozy and that I have a roof over my head. Okay, that's different than a 10,000 square foot house. So again, we can start to narrow in on what you value and what's most important. This is such an important exercise. So I really want you to take some time after watching this video to go ahead, write it down, take some time, get real with yourself. Because I'm telling you, if you get real with this step, you're gonna start living your best life. Hey, I'd love to hear from you on you getting your clarity on your values. What do you value? How do you value it? Let me know. Whether it's you send me a DM or you put a comment below, would love to hear it. Financial advisors aren't covering this. And guess what? Until you get real about what you want and what you value and where you want to go, you're not going to be living your best life. So I want you to live your best life today. Start with clarity on your values.